learn how to stake, helping stakers figure out their rigs, and also decentralizing the beacon chain. We have a mission of making sure that client diversity is at a maximum, that geographic diversity is at a maximum, and we support all initiatives that lead to a higher diversity in all of its multifaceted, all the multifaceted ways that you can be decentralized. So today we have the Nethermind client team, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Marek, do you want to start?
Sure. So I'm Marek from Nethermind team. I've been working in Nethermind 2.5 years for now. My main focus was Ethereum hard forks, so London 1559, the merge, and Shanghai recently. Happy to be here. Ahmad, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Ahmad Bitar. I am an Ethereum core developer with the Nethermind team. I joined around the merge, so a little bit, a month or so before the merge, something like that. And I'm happy to be here.
Roch?
Hi, everyone. I'm with the partnership team at Nethermind, and I'm also a solo staker. Very happy to be here with everybody.
Shimon?
Shimon Kulec here. I'm working to make state as small as possible, but not smaller, and still working.
Łukasz?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm probably the oldest in terms of time spent at Nevermind here. I was joined in 2019, and I am Ethereum core developer here.
Damian?
Hi everyone, my name is Damian. I joined towards the end of last year as an Ethereum core developer, and I am working on the rebuild of StateDB layout here in Nethermind.
Ben?
I am Ben Adams. I'm on the Nethermind team. Focused on performance is sort of my specialty.
Recording in progress.
Daniel?
Sorry, I was on mute. So I'm Daniel, and I joined a year and a half ago, and I'm managing the core group. And also, I'm hands-on, so I also a software engineer. And...
Ayman? Oh, sorry. Go.
No. I just wanted to say that Ayman is still there.
Hi, I'm Ayman. I joined Nethermind around the merge as well, and I mainly work on the EVM stuff, and I like it. Happy to be here.
And great. Last one, Alexei. Oh, sorry, we can't hear you, Alexei.
Okay, so I'm Alexei. Joined Nethermind like a year ago, and I'm Ethereum core dev too, working on Fruit for 4 now and other stuff. Hi everyone.
Great, it's great to meet you guys. So I was talking to the Nethermind team the other day, and I was surprised to hear that Nethermind is such a big company. They informed me that it's actually 220 people, and like this is the core team working on the execution layer client, but you guys have lots of other things that you do. Research, analytics, what else?
Auditors, Starkware ecosystem, and worth mentioning that core team is bigger than what you see on the call, because I think we have even 10 more people. What's more, Daniel, you can talk about it?
So yeah, the core team is around 20 people. So that's the team that works mostly on Nethermind client. Because Nethermind client is not just Ethereum, but also Noses and a few other smaller chains. But in general, like the main focus is Ethereum, of course. And we also have other teams that separate to this one. Also, core development team that works on layer 2 implementation of Starknet, but in a different tech stack. The team is called Juno. We have a block explorer implementation for layer 2s for Starknet specifically, but also can be probably reused for other layer 2s. And we have transpiler team that writes transpilers. We have auditing teams that do audits, formal verification team that do, also audits, and what else? Yeah, maybe Roch. Have I missed something?
Yeah, so we have the research team. I hope you can
Yeah.
hear me well. Yeah, so the research team focuses on decentralized identity, distributed validator technology, zero knowledge proof. And in case of the security team, one of the things that we do is the FORTA monitoring box. So we can them for any EVM chain, and they can provide updates, and inform users about any malicious activity or just volume on the bridges, etc. That's basically it.
So what Łukasz also mentioned in the chat, we have, of course, infrastructure team, DevOps team. So that's the team that is helping across all the engineering teams. And one team that we haven't actually mentioned, we have a team of software engineering team and also DeFi research team that helps with adoption. So, I mean, we work with institutional clients like hedge funds and other, like, let's say, organizations from the traditional finance to help adopt blockchain technologies and be the experts from the blockchain world that can bring that technology into the more traditional, let's say, businesses and domains.
Well,
Yeah,
one of the things I really like. Go, you go.
Yeah, basically to bring the billion people into blockchain, right? So that's what we'll focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I really like about like hearing this, the other sides of Nethermind, is that people realize that Nethermind is a big, robust, self-sustaining company that is going to be around for a while and has a very strong ecosystem of developers who are going to continue working on this client. So Nethermind is the second most major client behind Geth right now. Geth has a super majority on the chain, and so part of the impetus of this call is that we want to show people that execution layer clients have caught up. Geth was had a lot of stickiness at the beginning, and execution layer clients we have a lot of robust ones that are good options that that people should change over to in order to secure the health of the network. And so we'll get over to client diversity in a little while, but does somebody want to jump into, I don't know, like what are the differences between Nethermind and other clients, and what are the advantages of using Nethermind over like something like Geth?
Okay, so we can start with advantages because it is easier. I think one of the biggest advantage of Nethermind clients is syncing time, because with good hardware and good networking condition, you can attest even after 1 hour. Of course, time depends. It might be 3 hours on a different hardware, but it is definitely the fastest client to be able to sync, and it is really important thing for stakers. And the next thing, Ben, you can talk about latest versions.
Yeah, sure. So we listened to the feedback from the recent client ecosystem survey, which I think EthStaker encouraged all validators to participate in. That was published recently by the Ethereum cat herders. So the 1.17 release was obviously the fork for withdrawals. So that was focused on, a nice stable release. And then after that, we've released 1.18 and 1.19 is just about to come out. And their big focuses are on performance. 1.18, the main theme was around memory reduction. 1.19, the main themes around storage reduction, with both having a massive push to improve syncing as well. So across the two releases, there's more than 40 stability improvements, 70 performance improvements. Pruning time has reduced 8 times. The state of the DB can go down to 500 megabytes, where you're normally looking at terabytes previously. And as Marek said, 1.19 takes syncing time start from 1 hour down to 10 seconds. And you can start testing blocks in just over an hour from a completely blank from a fresh install with no data, and complete the full download in just under 4 hours, and you're all set up.
And we have also go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask if you wanted to say more about the syncing time.
So Nethermind is designed in this way that first of all, we are trying to download the snapshot of the chain, and thanks to that, we can start a testing while we are still downloading the history of the chain. In that period, the validator performance is not perfect, but it is better than being offline. So yeah, if you, for example, get DB corruption, etc., you can sync Nethermind really fast. I'm not sure if someone can want to add something more about it.
Yeah, so we are having different sync order, let's say, than, for example, other clients. So we focus on being able to process blocks as soon as possible, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So everything else is being done later in the background instead of being done in the foreground first. Another feature that Nethermind has is full pruning that is being online. So, for example, everyone that was running Geth or Nethermind knows that the state DB grows over time because it's slowed down by something called in-memory pruning. So we, maybe let's say taking a step back, we want to focus on providing a client that uses as little resources as possible. And one of these resources that is always problematic is disk, always disk size. And and database grows over time. And one of the problems is state DB here. And we have an online pruning method that allows to remove garbage from this database, and we can do it online. So actually while running the client. And this is a fairly unique feature to Nethermind. So for example, I know that Geth has an offline version, so we have to pause the client for a few hours to do this pruning. While we can do it online, and if anyone's used it and wants to use this, I also recommend updating to 1.18 because it has a lot of optimizations in terms of that, and it's a lot faster than before. But it's still a stopgap solution because later if we will discuss what's going on, never mind what we are cooking. We are cooking a new storage layout that will actually make this obsolete and make this really more user-friendly and less demanding on the disk solution. But this is still being worked on. Other thing very important is Nethermind plugins. Marek, do you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, sure. So if you want to introduce any feature to your clients, for example, modify the way that mempool is working or add one more custom RPC, you can do it with Nethermind plugins quite easily because that is how our architecture is working. And for example, you can also add consensus plugins. So in theory, you can build your own chain using Nethermind code base. And for example, the merge was written in 90% as a plugin. What's more, we have other plugins like TraceDB plugin. So it is important plugin for RPC providers because they can save trace on the disk and the request will be much faster. And health checks plugin that allows, for example, home stakers monitor health of the node. And thanks to that, you can easily set up some alerting around the node. Daniel?
I will just briefly try to explain what plugin is. So, like, imagine that you have a implementation of a node of the client. So, in most implementations, to customize it, you need to split the implementation, which is called doing like a fork. So then you need to maintain the main implementation and the fork. In terms of Nethermind, you can still have just one code base, one implementation, and you implement plugins separately as like additional features, and you then choose in your configuration what do you want to use. Yeah. So whenever whoever wants to implement something special, they can just take Nethermind, implement it, and put into configuration, use my plugin. So that's like in a very short summary.
Yeah, so for example, historically there were like, for example, MEVGAF was a thing, but in Nevermind you were able to build a MEV plugin that would work with the main release, and you wouldn't have to maintain the whole separate repository for it. And if we are on the subject, Nevermind is a little bit off the Ethereum directly. Nevermind is multi-chain, so some of those specialized features for other chains are implemented as plugins. So that's another upside, that if you are thinking about using also and being interested in other chains, both L1s and some L2s, you can use Nethermind. If you like get familiar with Nethermind, you can use it on not only on Ethereum directly, but also other chains, and that's a pretty good upside for us.
So possibly dumb question. These plugins are all like the optional, they're opt-in, right? These plugins are all, any validator can choose to use these or not. Do you guys have an idea of how many people are using these things?
So some of those plugins are directly deployed with the node. So some of them are, let's say, like first party, developed by us, and I think quite a lot of people use those because, for example, even the merge was implemented as a plugin, so everyone uses that, right? Yeah, we are aware of at least few external parties developing plugins. We have a channel on our Discord if anyone is interested. We also know at least of one institutional that is developing their own plugins. So yeah, there is a bit of usage there from external parties too, and we encourage more people, if they have a special case that they would want to have done something in the node, for example, for performance reasons, we encourage to look into it.
So is that the best place?
Sorry, I was going to say, is it fair to say that the vast majority of additional plugins are for people who use this as an RPC for integration with dApps and not for stakers on Ethereum?
Yes, but yeah, I would say this is mostly for like a bigger players that want something additional on their node, right? Something to, for example, integrate that with their infrastructure easier. So, for example, I can see that some bigger institution can use it, for example, to integrate it really well with their monitoring stack, with custom monitoring stack, for example, things like that.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Cool. And so the best place to find more information on this plugin, on these plugins, is your Discord?
Our Discord, our documentation, yes.
I mean, Discord is the best place to get support, whether you're doing a plugin or even you're staking, right? If you're running Nethermind at home or off-premise, wherever, Discord would be the best place to go. Our Discord server, we offer the support directly there. Interestingly, we all the core team members participate in giving support. So we have this rotating thing where each one of us have 1 week to support our users, which honestly is nice for us. So we know because if you get engaged with the users, you know what their most worries are about, right? And that helps us improve in that regard. And the other thing is that it gives us the satisfaction of happy users that have managed to sync and start validating on the network. But yeah, Discord definitely. We also look at other social media platforms sometimes to try to cover all bases. We try to sometimes look at other Discord servers like Rocket Pool, EthStaker, etc. The docs obviously are a great source of information for how to start running the node and all that kind of stuff. But whenever you get stuck, just join our Discord channel, the Discord server, and we will for sure be able to help.
Great. And so in terms of solo staking, I know that when I first set up a node, or I think like 6 months ago or a year ago, sometime I tried to switch to Nethermind and my RAM was too small, but I know that you guys have had improvements since then. So for solo stakers, what are the minimum hardware requirements for running Nethermind?
So I would say in terms of RAM, we recommend 16, but I think with the recent improvements, running on 8 gigabytes of RAM is possible, but the experience there might be not as great as with 16. Especially if you're running on the same box consensus layer client, then the resources need to be shared. Like 8 gigabytes for Nethermind should be enough, but if you're running CL client and other things on the box, I would recommend having 16 for both. In terms of storage, I think with 1.19 coming out, the right out of the box storage used by Nethermind is around a little bit more than 500 gigabytes. But again, you should have some headroom to do this. So 1 terabyte is, in my opinion, a minimum. If you have more headroom, like a 2 terabyte drive, it's even better. In terms of CPU, this is fairly easy. Any modern x86 CPU should do. And in terms of ARM, I don't recommend Raspberry 5, but there's this ROC chip, ROC 5B, for example, that is totally fine. So if we can recommend here Ethereum on ARM for that, they are really a voice for low-powered devices in the ecosystem, and they also recommend ROC 5B for any node.
Right. So
one important thing to mention here would be that you need to worry about one more thing, which is disk speed. So I/O in general, how fast is your disk? That's why we advise our users always to use SSDs, and sometimes they have some problems with syncing and not catching up to the tip of the chain and stuff like that. And a lot of the times it would be a slow drive that is holding them back from being able to sync with the chain. So yeah, also there is that restriction that you will need a fast drive. So an SSD will definitely help.
Right, and often not just any, right? So if it's like a budget thing, DRAM less, using QLC, it might not catch up. We do have a gist that's linked in the EthStaker Discord that has a list of known good SSDs that people can just pick and choose from. I think generally, Nethermind, like any other client, if you have 4 cores, 16 gig or better of RAM, and a 2 terabyte fast SSD, you're good to go for a full stack, including consensus layer and Nethermind. 32 gig can be a nice to have for faster online pruning. Not necessary, but beneficial.
Cool. So that covers solo stakers. What is your guys' experience with institutional stakers using Nethermind, and what kind of are you targeting one over the other at this point?
So there is no one target because Nethermind working well for both solo staking and institutional staking. So if you are asking about target users, I would say that we want to build a stable client, easy to use for users with good performance, and basically we want to do our part in client diversity.
Cool, but you guys do have some institutional stakers who Nethermind has been shown to be stable with institutional setups.
Maybe Rock can weigh in a bit. I know he's trying to get us into more of those to encourage them to try Nethermind more.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to add there. We spoke with many, and they are looking into Nethermind, and especially after the recent updates, it makes more and more sense to switch to Nethermind.
That is close to the heart of EthStaker because so client diversity is one of EthStaker's thing. We want to maximize the diversity on both the consensus layer and the execution layer side. I know that Thorsten is putting together some details right now. Thorsten owns a company called Crypto Manufacturer, and he is good at testing clients at scale, at relatively large scales. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about was client diversity. But to talk about client diversity, you need good data to be able to push clients that are minority clients. And so one of the things that we did is when we saw Prism was a super majority, we started pushing for more adoption of the minority clients. But execution layer data is a little harder to get at. And Thorsten, do you want to say a couple of things about like why execution data is so hard to get at?
I can, yeah. And then maybe we'll also do a quick refresher as to, why do we care about client diversity? What does this do for you as an institutional staker or a solo staker? I mean, health of the network is great, but let's make sure that you can be selfish and rational and still say, I want this, right? So the reason it's really hard to figure out which clients are being used for staking, which is what we're concerned about here, is that it's not visible on chain in any way, shape, or form. It's the consensus layer client that publishes the block, and we have some fingerprinting there where there's a certain behavior with how they order attestations that allows us to, within a reasonable margin of error, say this is the percentages of consensus layer clients, right? And Sigma Prime has done great work there with their fingerprinter. The trouble is that on the execution layer, one block looks exactly like another. There's no way to say this execution block was built by Nethermind, right? It's just not possible. So the only thing we do have is that we just go around and ask, hey, what are you running? Hey, what are you running, right? And some of the large LSTs, they do surveys quarterly. And then you also have like the larger SEX stakers, right? Centralized exchange stakers who can answer the question of what are you running in your backend? And so if we do that, when you look at execution-diversity.info, you get a good overview. I was kind of eyeballing that and saying 90-ish%, the person that actually made that, I think that's Sonic from Beacon Chain. He actually did a spreadsheet and he came to 91%. He's currently working with the guy who does clientdiversity.org. Clientdiversity.org currently shows Geth at 61%. That is not correct for staking purposes. For staking purposes, this is 91%, right? So let's get to, why is that mildly scary? All right. There are really two scenarios that we're worried about, one less scary than the other. The first scenario is exactly what happened last week. We had a bug in a consensus layer client, and this led to non-finality. Ethereum kept trucking though. We kept making blocks, everything was just fine. If this happens to Geth, we're losing like 90% of the block production capacity, which is painful. But again, Ethereum will continue through that. It will survive that. So let's talk about the much scarier part. And this is something that is, I will first say this is highly unlikely to ever happen. And if it does happen, it has absolutely catastrophic impact for individuals and stakers. And that is, imagine Geth has a consensus bug. It says this block is valid to an invalid block. The consensus layer will believe it because Geth has a supermajority right now. And this is true for any client with a supermajority, right? I'm not picking on Geth. Geth is a great client. It's just we don't want it as a supermajority. That's the focus. So if a supermajority says, a supermajority client says, this invalid block is valid, and then the consensus layer client goes, okay, I believe you, and votes for that, we now have a finalizing chain on the wrong chain that is non-canonical. There's absolutely no good way back from that. The fallout would be immense. The three options we have is /90% of the network. That's not great. Leak 90% of the network down to close to no ETH. That's not great. Declare the wrong chain canonical. Yeah, can you imagine the fallout from that? This is not, we just don't want to ever find out what that would look like, right? We don't want to go there. And the way we do that is that we say, look, we got three great clients to choose from. We got Geth, we got Nethermind, we got Besu, right? Choose something that's not a supermajority client. If you're currently running Geth, go to Nethermind. Maybe go to Besu, right? And run those. And then if we can get Geth down to 50%, 40%, something like that, we'll be in great shape. If Geth has a bug, even a catastrophic one like a consensus layer impacting bug, it no longer matters if it doesn't have a supermajority. It's just fine. The chain will continue. It'll lose finality for a moment, and then it'll be fine again, right? No worries at all. That's where we want to get to. We did it for the consensus layer last year. Let's do it for the execution layer this year. I think we're ready.
Jorg, thank you so much for that. That was a perfect spiel for that. Does anybody from the Nethermind team want to add anything? And do you guys think at any point it will be easier to measure, to use objective data to report client diversity on the execution layer side?
I don't think we'll have ever hard data from the network, because this is something that one is being tracked on the CL, like being said, and we don't want to even there we don't really want to track it too much, because it's not something that we want to track, right? Who's running what too much in any non-anonymous way, and I don't think there's a good way of doing that. Another problem problem to do that for EL clients is MEV boost. So currently the situation is that most of the build blocks are not built by the clients that are validating the chain. So if you have CL-EL pair and you use MEV boost, you get a block from the relay, which is built in some way. But then you validate that with your own local client. So even if you're using MEV boost, the client diversity still stands, because for validation you are using diverse client, for example, even though you build it from somewhere which you even don't know what it built. So that still stands even with MEV boost.
That's absolutely right. It's the validation that matters here. So I want to maybe, if I can, briefly talk about what my own experience has been running minority clients. So you can look up Crypto Manufacturer. You'll see that I'm part of a large LST. I have a few thousand keys, and I have been running these initially with a combination of Geth and Besu and Nethermind. And then I ripped Geth out entirely. I'm now in a combination of Nethermind, Besu, and Eragon. And it's been just fine. It's been running like that since last year. Maybe there's a hiccup here or there, but like the 118 did a great job in reducing resource need during pruning, which really helped me. Thank you. So I can say this is not scary. For someone who's validating at scale, Nethermind is stable, Besu is stable, right? I can absolutely, those two I would recommend. Obviously, we don't want everybody coming off Geth right away, and then we have Nethermind as a supermajority. That would not help us. But we also know that's not going to happen, right? We saw this when we did this on the consensus layer. People switched over, and now we have two clients with 30-some%, right? And then further ran. If we can get Geth at 40%, Nethermind at 40%, and further ran, we're in great shape. you know.
And I just want to say one thing about the data, the 91% that he got. So execution dash diversity.info, I think is the website that is being built by somebody at Bitfly who builds Beacon Chain. And they're basically calling up the big providers and asking, what are you guys running? And so that is extrapolated. Well, it's not extrapolated. It's from that percentage of the network that's run by those people. What percentage of that is run by Geth? So that's 91% right now. That's a super majority. That's terrible. So that is something that we can currently work on. And like Yorick said, like we are ready to do it right now.
I think Nethermind might have higher adoption in solo staking world because it's easier to convince solo stakers. So this number might be worse than it actually is, but still we also need to have the major players on board for that. We cannot.
Yeah, we know that solo stakers are, what was it, Nick's 4% of the network, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was 4. That's an unconfirmed report, but I think the 4% was the.
Okay, so we have solo stakers with 4% of the network, and let's say that Rocket Pool is a good proxy for what solo stakers choose, and Rocket Pool currently has about 50-ish% Geth. So for solo stakers, the diversity probably looks pretty good right now, right? Now we need to get the big boys on board to fix this.
And I just want to say that there are many things that we can work on towards decentralization, and client diversity is a big one. Pool diversity is a big one, but it's a little easier to talk about client diversity because nobody benefits. Like Nethermind doesn't benefit from being a majority client. Geth doesn't benefit from being majority client. This is not like a profitable thing for them. They are core devs. This is a core infrastructure piece of Ethereum. And so it is easier to talk about this because even when we were talking about client diversity, Prism supported the idea that their majority needed to go down.
So if you go back a few years, and I don't have this at my fingertips, there was a comment, I think this was 2018, 2019, this is a while ago. There was a comment by the Geth developers that basically said, guys, it's really stressful to be this client because it's on us, right? Everybody makes mistakes, bugs exist, but we just can't, we're not allowed. You know, we are Ethereum and it's incredibly stressful and some of us are burning out. So, you know, you can see this move to other clients as just a way to protect yourself from potentially catastrophic impact. You can also see it as doing something nice for the Geth team so they can sleep more soundly, you know?
That's true. We just need to clone all of these very effective developers and make about 100 of them.
Great.
So do we want to move on to talking about like the future of Nethermind? What do you guys see as like the most important things that you're working on, that you're implementing? What are you guys working towards?
So the future, I think that the most important, very core level for the client is the state DB layout change. So if we manage to do that, and we have 2 work streams separately on that are kind of competing with each other, but if we manage to do that, we can probably get rid of pruning as is now. So it will like happen by default online, so it won't store any garbage data by default. So that would be a very good user experience boost. Another thing, we will have faster block processing times, and that would drive attestation even higher. Like we are slicing those last % to get a little bit better attestation, but even better attestation than we have. And this would allow us to try to do archive node optimizations, right? So right now, Nevermind state layout doesn't allow us to be super efficient at the archive node. There are better clients to do that, and we want to also try to optimize for that. And this will come hopefully this year. We'll see. And we can have like Damian and Szymon talking about their work streams there. So maybe let's start with Damian.
So as Łukasz mentioned, right, a few advantages of the rework of the state database. We want to improve the processing time. We want to improve EVM, but also kind of touching on the client diversity. This is also one of the ways that we see the Nethermind client implementing SnapServe, right, being also apart from the Geth, another client which enables that, making the whole network much more safer in terms of the initial sync. But this work is kind of based on the approach that we use, the current persistence strategy in Nethermind client. The work that Szymon is doing right now goes even further into making more changes that will bring more benefits. But let Szymon talk about it.
Yeah, so one of the streams, like Łukasz and Damian mentioned, is called Paprika. So this is like an R&D project, and what we are trying to do is to build like a fully custom database, like from the ground up till the state. So basically, the whole state of Ethereum would be managed and stored by this custom project called Paprika. A few advantages that are already observed in some of the benchmarks is like smaller disk footprint. We already had some runs with no pruning at all, like if just accounts are only updated and there are no additional storage entries being added, no pruning is needed. Also assumed faster block processing, also better reorg handling, and potentially this is like a side stream of a side stream. Better archive node. If you are interested in that, please take a look at our repo, so Nethermind/Paprika. The work is being done in the open, so yep.
So archive node is something I'm actually really interested in. I do run an archive node. I tried syncing a Nethermind node, but all I had was 14 tebibytes of SSD. And 14 tebibytes wasn't quite enough. So I had to stop my sync. Like, oh, okay, no Nethermind archive for me. So if that can be reduced, that'd be great.
So this is because we are using a very straightforward approach to storing the Patricia-Melker tree, which is the state of Ethereum. So we actually keep the tree for all the history. And this was proven. This is, from one hand, this is like the most complete archive node you can have, but on the other hand, it's too big on resources, and it's proven to be like not practical for most people right now. So yeah, we are trying to optimize for that, but this will come in the future. It's not yet there, but absolutely, this is one of the main focus.
Yeah, and for stakers, right, for validation, a full node, a pruned full node is the way to go. So to be clear, right, to put this into perspective, what we're talking about here is a database that only grows as the state of Ethereum grows. So from 2022 to 2023, for example, that was around 200 gigabytes that the state grew, I think, something like that. I might be wrong. So the state growth of Ethereum is manageable until EIP 444 comes around, right? Maybe sometime 2025, who knows? And in the meanwhile, it'd be great to just be, even for home stakers, to be able to run this on a 2 terabyte SSD and just not have to worry about pruning ever. Or running out of disk space, right? Like we've said this before with other clients, like you don't need to prune here. And then people are like, but I'm running out of disk space. And we go, yeah, haha, trollolo. We meant you don't have to prune, but you have to resync. So with this stuff like Paprika or path-based, you wouldn't prune or resync. You just wouldn't run out of space.
Yes, exactly.
That is correct. Yes.
Great. Do you guys have some other projects that you want to talk about real quick, right?
Yep, I can chime in with another one, which is called IL EVM or IL EVM. And basically, it's another R&D project. We had a spike a few months back, and it aims at delivering much faster execution for, let's say, the mostly or most popular contracts. So if you think like if there is any popular contract, Uniswap, whatever, what we are trying to do is to make it, let's say, pre-compiled in a way that it will be much, much faster to run. Again, this is low-level stuff with .NET, etc. But the expected output is to squeeze the last performance bits of these most popular contracts. And another one is libp2p. Alexei, would you like to chime in?
Yeah. So libp2p, well, quite a standard de facto for different peer-to-peer communications, and we're trying to implement it, and we'll be able to integrate in Nethermind. And yeah, do you hear me? Okay.
Yeah,
Great. And we will be able to communicate with on different networks with different applications using this technology. For example, consensus layer, we can pick some bits of functionality from consensus layer clients to make some lightweight checks and so on. So kind of useful, I think. Hope to be available as a open source public project soon.
Great. Daniel, did you have something to say?
Yeah, so it's something that maybe it's not like a link usually with solo stakers, but there is a technology called DVT, distributed validation technology. So in theory, there are multiple organizations or teams working on it, or different implementations, but we're also involved in that. So so I won't go into details, but we have like a research team at the moment that tries to explore this area and work on DVT at the moment, and with some other organizations. And in the future, it's probable that we'll try to implement also a tech stack that will integrate with Nethermind client, and it will allow kind of like a more secure way of staking, that there's gonna be much lesser risk to get slashed in case of any mistakes made by stakers. So, but whenever someone wants to learn more, you can read about DVT technology online.
Cool, thanks. We have a question from the YouTube chat from B-Law. If the new Nethermind version no longer needs pruning, the existing stakers that set up their nano file for pruning, do they revert that back or do they just leave it alone?
So it's not the version released. The current version still needs pruning. So when we will get there, we will be big announcement for this version that we are there. So we are working on it. So we hope to get there. It's not there yet.
And
Great.
also, so to answer that question directly, this will require a resync of the database from scratch. I'll just say that. You guys can correct me if that's not so, but usually
it might. We'll see if if we can provide a migration, but it might not be feasible to do that.
That's
so
cool.
It's not decided yet.
That's amazing. Okay, great. And yes, if somebody has like auto pruning settings in the parameters now, they would just remove those from their service file.
Yeah, we'll probably remove those settings if they won't be applicable even. So they won't, even if someone has that, they won't matter.
They won't matter, right? Exactly, but they can remove them. Okay, do we have any other questions from YouTube?
No more questions. Do we have anything else that we want to chat about before we get to the POAP? I know that one of the things that might be interesting is if you guys want to have if you guys have anything to say about Nethermind's implementation of 4844 and Denkun and anything in that region.
Yeah, so Nethermind was one of the first clients to prototype 4844, and we were included in all the devnets from the first devnet, and Alexei is our main implementer of champion of this this feature. So maybe Alexei want to chime in a bit.
Yeah, 4844 is still in active development and will require more DevNets. But even now we can say that it will be a very great update in terms of like scalability. One of the first like very active steps in this direction, and will make transactions cheaper. For L2, it will be significantly cheaper, and will add more space for regular transactions in blocks. And in some certain cases, it will allow to have more space on nodes. I mean, less data will be needed to store at execution layer.
Yeah, so maybe if we step back a second and unpack what is 4844. It's an Ethereum improvement proposal. It is the focus of the next hard fork. It's also called proto-dank scaling, previously proto-dank sharding. We have great names here in Ethereum land. If for people who have been following Ethereum for a while, there was the idea that layer 1 would gain throughput through execution sharding. That's been off the table for well over a year now. Everything is into layer 2s. So this is about layer 2 protocols, whether ZK proof, whether optimistic, whatever, right? So they can more cheaply publish these proofs to layer 1 to Ethereum. We expect that this does potentially nothing for layer 1 gas fees, but that it greatly reduces fees on layer 2.
Great, thanks, Torsten.
As for other Cancun or Dencun EIPs, I won't go into details, but most of them are focusing on potential lower gas usage of some contracts, as well as increasing. There's a EIP 4788 that will increase a bit security for things like pools and bridges. Yeah, so they are not as important nor interesting as 4844 in terms of like the whole ecosystem, but there are other upgrades there too.
Yeah, and then I think after that, if I'm reading it right, after Dencun this year, we're looking at potentially a hard fork just to get the EVM object format in, right? Because it's been pushed a couple times.
Yeah, it's not settled. It can be EVM object format. It can be vertical trees. There's like, right. We'll see what's next.
We'll see what it is. So EOF and vertical trees are two of the things that are up in there that would be really helpful. I think EOF is for just easy adapt development, right? Being able to add features without having to be backwards compatible all the time, which is really hard. And then vertical trees are one step towards reducing state storage. That plus EIP 444 is my understanding. Just kind of go hand in hand, or am I misunderstanding that?
Not for vertical trees. So okay. Let me maybe explain vertical trees, and then Ayman can explain EOF because he's the champion of EOF. But for the vertical trees are all about enabling stateless execution. So right. Imagine that when you want to post a transaction on the Ethereum network and to check if it's went through, what you do is from your wallet you send it most of the time to some node, right? And you don't run your own node as a regular user, so you post it to some centralized node, for example, right? Infura or something runs it some nodes, and you post it there. And think about it that this provider can start, it can start censoring you, or it can start track some of your data, for example, your IP or things like that. So it can, for example, build a map of IPs to addresses, right? Because it can track who sends from which IP, which address, and have some kind of tracking on you. And you cannot really, you can circumvent that by syncing your own node and sending that data to your own node. But syncing your own node requires resources, right? It requires storage. It requires bandwidth, it requires a lot of those things. So vertical trees are all about adding to the block some something we called witnesses and proofs. And it allows you to spin up something we will call a light client. And light client doesn't have to download anything. It can take that block with its proofs and witnesses, and based on that, it can verify it. So you can sync node so we don't have to sync node, you can spin up node very easily. So imagine a situation that when you want to send something from your wallet, it doesn't have to go to the centralized provider. It can even internally spin up a node, send through peer-to-peer network your transaction, wait for it to be finalized, confirm it's finalized, and shut down, for example. It allows us to have a much more decentralized world for this kind of less, how to call it, this kind of actions, right? This kind of solutions. So that's the main idea about vertical trees. I don't think it will reduce state in any way, state size, and actually it will increase the block size because they will be increased a bit.
So I had read somewhere that that state expiry and statelessness go hand in hand. That ideally we want both in order to, but we're running out of time, and that's fine. I love that this is going to help decentralize dApps and things like MetaMask, because that was Moxie Marlinspike's criticism, right? He said Ethereum isn't really decentralized; it's centralized around Infura when you from a user perspective, and he has a point, right? So this would potentially greatly improve that. Ben, go ahead.
I mean, you could even imagine that the light client is running in the wallet. So when you do your transaction, it's actually within your own wallet that the client is spun up and the transaction's done and then shut down again.
And that's lightweight enough that it could even be like on a phone, on a handheld device wallet.
Exactly, that's the point. And to shout out to Tanishq, who is not here with us. We have vertical trees implementation. It's of course being still developed, but we are also participating as Nethermind in all the test nets. And I think it's only us and Geth right now, and fork of Geth that's doing the vertical tree implementation. So yeah, we are like really. So because for a long time, our team was very small, but in the last year and a half, we grew a lot, and we can now track and work on all these initiatives simultaneously. And this is, really good for us. And you can also see that our recent releases are very, very large in terms of features that we cram in. And this is because there are so many people now working on Nethermind.
Right. I think we're at time. One last comment I have, just to make sure that people who are staking get the right idea here. My understanding is this idea of a light client that doesn't have to carry state, that's for users. It's not for stakers. If you're validating, you still need a full node.
Well,
okay.
If you're using MEV, so if you're not relying on creating your own blocks, I would say you can still validate them. So if you are trusting your MEV to give you blocks when you need, you could use it to validate the chain. But you cannot create your own blocks without having the full state.
Got it. So it'll remain interesting for sure.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. We have a POAP for today's call. I put it in the YouTube chat, and I also put it in the Zoom chat. So participants can go mint it there. Audience can go mint it. It's also in the YouTube description. We're very happy that you guys came. Anybody else want to mention anything? Have any questions? Any last comments? Great. Thank you guys so much for coming. Nethermind, feel free to stay on the call. We're going to drop the live stream. Thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you for having us.